Hi, my name's Stephanie Berryhill, and I'm going to be showing you my student case study portfolio. We'll start with the student language profile, a second grade student in a general education self-contained classroom with ESL supports. We're going to be talking about his reading, writing, speaking, and listening skills. On the WIDA Access test, he received a 2.3 in his reading score. He can process explanations by interpreting images, illustrations, and graphics, and identify elements of expository text. He can process recounts by identifying time-related language and context, and by illustrating experiences of characters in illustrated statements. He can process arguments by distinguishing fact from fiction, and by identifying claims or opinions. He can discuss by asking yes or no questions, to request clarification, and recognize how different annotation conveys meaning. In writing, he scored a 1.9. He can explain by describing elements of processes or procedures, and state how something happens using illustrations and sequential language. He can recount by listing ideas using graphic organizers and describing visual information. He can argue by participating in shared opinion writing pieces, connecting preferences, choices, and opinions to the reasons, and he can discuss by asking yes or no questions to request clarification and recognize how different annotation conveys different meaning. In speaking, he scored a 3. He can explain by describing relationships between objects or uses for tools. He can express cause and effect of behaviors or events. He can recount by retelling simple stories from picture cues, stating information from personal or school-related experiences. He can argue by describing and organizing categories for content-related information. And he can ask and answer questions in collaborative groups. He can discuss by negotiating agreement in small groups and by expressing his own ideas consistent with the topic being discussed. In listening, he scored a 5.2. He can process explanations by identifying the purpose of the language or the message in each area. He can follow a series of short oral directions to create models in a content area or process. He can process recounts by identifying details of content-related topics, mapping designs, or modeling, following oral directions. He can process arguments by comparing oral arguments with representations of models, and he can identify claims in oral presentations. And he can discuss by initiating and maintaining conversations and challenging ideas. Next, we'll move to his history. Eric, this is his language learning background, age, personality, sociocultural factors, and others. Eric is a lively and knowledge-hungry 8-year-old. His family immigrated from Mexico in 2006. Spanish is his first language, but he is currently more proficient in English than Spanish. He spoke Spanish at home until he was about 3, which was 2011. Then his mother remarried his stepfather, an English speaker, and helped him teach English. There's a 12-year gap between him and his sister. His sister also speaks Spanish and English. English is the primary language spoken at home and has been since 2011. He never attended preschool or kindergarten, and his first time ever in school was in March 2017 at the end of first grade. Resnick in 1991 stated that children, regardless of culture or nationality, they all follow a general pattern of cognitive development. However, there are variations among and within each culture, and in order to understand development, we need to be aware of the context in which the child acquires knowledge. This was very important for us to know when we started to get to know Eric. He began reading at a pre-A level, determined by F&P, and he didn't recognize any print structures in books, nor could he identify any letters or numbers. He had a hard time adjusting to school because of the delay in his start and because he has a diagnosed anxiety disorder. He began second grade reading 6 levels below grade level, but could recognize all of his letters and numbers now. He could even read and write basic CVC words. He's made amazing growth in both math and reading, and currently he's only 2 reading levels below and can decode with 98% accuracy. He's great at responding to comprehension questions of all kinds. He has a hard time responding to challenges in the classroom with his classmates, and he turns to physical self-harm when he is extremely frustrated. When he doesn't understand something, he shuts down and has a hard time using learned strategies to recover. He tries his hardest on all of his tasks and loves when the task involves physical activity and is working hard to improve his reading and writing skills. Even though he had a late start in his educational career, he's rapidly approaching mastery of grade level skills. Next, we'll move to talking about his self-assessment. This self-assessment is a behavior assessment because he struggles with controlling his volume in the classroom, and it sometimes interferes with his learning. Many times when his day is thrown off, he has a hard time getting started on his work and maintaining work ethic. We have set the 3 goals, and after every block of time in our day, I sit with him and ask him guiding questions. Then he self-assesses. I ask questions like, how do you think you did today? If he had a hard time, I can ask, what can we do to change that next time? And if he had a great time, I can say, how can we keep this behavior up? We keep all of his assessments and look at his progress at the end of the week. Looking at his self-assessment, we came up with goals. Eric and I sit together to reflect on his self-assessment after each block of time in which he rates himself. He came up with some goals. He wants to work on his indoor voice in the classroom and outdoor voice at recess. Wants to follow directions more quickly so he can start his work right away. And he wants to be a role model. A formal behavior plan is being crafted by me, his teacher, the social worker, and both the principal and assistant principal. This plan will include daily social-emotional lessons from the Second Step curriculum and a time set aside during the week to meet in a group with a social worker. Not related to the self-assessment, he will continue to receive ESL services, and they will focus on implementing and improving penmanship and writing content. This is the parent invitation to his parents. Dear Mr. and Mrs. Ramirez, please join us for a celebration of Eric's success Friday, April 29th, 2018 from 11 to 12 at Hiawatha Elementary School. Refreshments will be provided. Writing samples. Eric struggles greatly with writing. As you can see from his Access results, writing is the domain in which he struggles the most. He specifically struggles with spelling and trying to get his point across in written words. He doesn't enjoy writing, and it's typically very difficult to motivate him to write. The 2 examples that I have are a personal narrative and an opinion writing piece. The personal narrative, as mentioned by Bastiera, she said in Cognition, Culture, Language, and Assessment, How to Select Culturally Valid Assessments in the Classroom. She says that establishing and contextualizing assessment tasks using real-world examples that connect with something that students know, listen to, read, or see in their lives is a great way to create cultural valid text. And we provided an opportunity where a 5th grade teacher dressed up as a Yeti and ran into our classroom asking the students to help her get back to Antarctica. At first glance, you can notice that his reflection in writing about this experience, he has an extreme difficulty in segmenting his words in order to spell them. He includes what he's thinking into his writing. He has not mastered the art of crafting a sentence yet. His punctuation typically comes in the middle, and he needs more practice with penmanship and formation of letters. This is a current writing sample, an opinion piece. He's able to correctly use sentence frames to introduce his opinion. He does not capitalize in the beginning of sentences. He has not grasped the skill of providing reasons and evidence for his reasoning. He provides transitions between his sentences. He struggles to provide past tense and plurals in his writing. And he has improved greatly in his writing since the personal narrative that I showed you from the beginning of the year. Next, we're going to look at the assessments that I chose. I chose 3 different assessments, F&P reading assessment, a verbal recounting assessment, and a how-to book as a performance assessment for Eric. The first one is the Fountas and Pinnell reading assessment. The objective of this was that the student will read the text out loud with the teacher, and they will use the text as a tool to answer the within the text and beyond and about the text questions. The method is that the student will read the text out loud, and the teacher takes a running record on a specified number of words. The accuracy rate is determined, and the fluency rate is scored. Our teacher asks the students questions and compares with the rubric that has suggested answers to the actual student responses, and a score is given based on that. He made 11 errors, which gave him a 93% accuracy, and his responses put him at a 4 out of 7 comprehension. So this determined that this book was too hard for him to read independently, but he could read it with an instruction complement from his teacher. The next assessment is a recounting assessment. For this one, the student recounted a story through using character, setting, events, problem, and solution, and that the student will identify the central message or theme. The method was that the student listened to the book Rocky Recess verbally, and then they recounted the story verbally on the Shobi iPad app, and they used the text as a tool if needed. As you can look at this recounting assessment, there were different things that they had to include in their response to earn them either a 1, 2, 3, or 4. Eric earned mostly 2s on this assessment, which will mean we need to continue to work with him on his recounting abilities of a story.
Hey guys, my name is book. It's called Rocky Recess, and the characters are Ben, Ross, and Mrs. Sanchez. And they feel so mad because they fight over everything. They voted because they both like everything. They both like they just climbing. Tell you about the setting. So the setting, it goes inside. It takes you inside, and then they go out recess, so it's outside. And then they go back inside, and then it's and I think it's the summer because you can see the sun, and they're not even wearing jackets. They don't have any of them. The problem is when they both like everything. They like to play goalie. They like to climb, and they even like to run. But and they will fight you for every single thing forever. And they're like, "Give me back the swing!" No. The solution is when they flip a coin, and then Raj was head and laid it on his head, so Raj was the goalie. Raj is the goalie, and then he said, "Next game you can become goalie." Yeah, sweet. First, Ben liked soccer. He liked to run. He liked to climb. The next day, there were a new kid. His name was Raj, and Raj sat next to Ben. Ben thought Raj was strange. Raj thought Ben was strange. After that, the next day, they were going on the swing. There was a new tire swing. Ben wanted to be the first one to try it, but there was already a person on it. It was Raj. finally they became best friends until the end. So they he was going, Rod was going first, and then next it was Ben. The author told me how to behave and be mean, but he also told us how to be kind, nice, and funny, and Japanese.
This assessment provided a great opportunity for washback, which is something that I really took away from this class. When grading this assessment, the students sat one-on-one with the teacher to discuss where they think their responses fit into the rubric, and then the students placed themselves and made a plan on how they would record and how they would improve future recounts of books. This is the third assessment, and how-to book performance assessment. The objective for this was that students will reflect on a personal experience of something that they know how to do and can teach someone else about. Students will explain step by step how to complete a task, and they will use their writing rubric to assess their writing conventions. Methods were that students listed many ideas of things they can do and explained them to a friend as the friend acted them out. Partners would determine if their explanations were easy enough to follow and had any gaps. And the students wrote their how-to book in a given format. The how-to book performance assessment was a single task assessment, and students were provided with a prompt, directions, and evaluation criteria. This is one of the easiest types of tests to create because it's only one item that's involved. Student responses are open-ended, and the evaluation criteria may have already been covered in previous instruction, which is what Brown and Abby Wickrama told us on page 61. This type of assessment provides choice to the student and allows them to relate to their how-to book to their own background and activity, and that's what they're familiar with, and there's not only one correct answer, so this was a really good assessment for them. My reflection of this assignment is that collecting materials, having conversations, and preparing this portfolio have gave me the opportunity to really understand Eric as not only a student but a whole self. I got to dig into his background and understand the why behind the what I am seeing in the classroom. I've now become more aware and intentional of providing clear directions, explanations, and examples on my assessments to help students become more successful. I have also started to work more self-assessments into the daily routines and have began to provide more authentic washback to students to help them improve performance. The most valuable takeaway, I would say, is that it allowed me to view the great amount of growth this student has had and all the things that he's capable of now. It also allowed him to see all the growth, and he is so, so proud. Thanks for listening.